Us, opening statement, we good?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if you want to give an opening statement, you can, but it's not good.
What do you guys want to talk about?
Well, my first question is, you said after the Louisville game that you didn't want whatever happened out there to define this season or to allow the guys to let this define who this team is or will be. So what's your approach heading back? Is it what happened in Maui stays in Maui and now we got a clean slate heading forward, or what's your approach heading into this stretch?
I think what I was trying to say, sorry, I ran to get here, so I wouldn't be late.
Me too.
I think what I was trying to say was, going into the event, you're talking about the best event in college basketball in the preseason, and then the field this year seemed to be about as good as a field as you've ever seen there in terms of what each program was currently. I think there were 5 teams in the top 25 going into it. And I shoot now 2 in the top 10, I believe, with Arizona and Creighton. So what I talked about going into it with our team and our staff did was, if we go have great success, that doesn't mean we've arrived. Like, it's November. And if we go and there's some failure, it doesn't mean that the season's over. Like, we're not going to allow those 3 days to define whether we're going to be good or whether we're not going to be good. We're going to go out, play our tails off, and try to learn from whatever happens and grow from whatever happens, good or bad. And that's kind of the way we went into it, and I think that's the way we're coming out of it is, it's not just Maui, but we've had now 7 games in a really short window to figure some things out about our team and identify some things that are good and we need to double down on, and some things that really aren't up to par and we got to spend a lot of time working on. So, we've got a really good snapshot of what we have, where we have to get better, and I think these practices right now are about the most valuable practices we'll have all year, because you got a chance to really try to put something in place to create some identity, getting through the end of non-conference play and into league play.
Are you willing or able to share what some of those things that you feel, hey, we're doing this well and maybe this is where we need to get a lot better?
Well, I think we have the ability, without sharing things that won't help us competitively, I think we have the ability to score the ball in bunches and in spurts. We have some guys that can make shots. Make tough shots with David and Jeremiah and Landers. To be 3 guys, like we can put up points in a hurry, and you've seen some stretches like that early in the year. We need to be more consistent offensively. We have to figure out how to take better shots offensively. We have to get the ball moving better. We have to run stuff that puts our guys in the appropriate position for them, so that that the structure of our offense helps our guys. But we also got to recognize, what the strengths are of each player, and realize that, like certain guys are pretty good shooters off the bounce in isolation situations. So we're going to have to do that regardless of what other people think about that. So those things, I think we've really found that Vic Locken's taken a huge step as a player. We got to get him the ball more. We got to put him in more positions. I think, Micah Adams-Woods has really taken a step as an offensive player. I think we can do some more things for him. So those are just a couple things offensively, but the consistency is the main thing that we're trying to focus on as a team and as a program. And then we're trying to change some offensive structure to make sure we're, playing to our strengths and kind of playing away from our weaknesses. Defensively is where the majority of my concern is. You're going to get better offensively as the year goes on, as you play together. But defensively, we haven't quite found our identity yet as a defensive team. And you guys that have gotten to know me over the last year know that it hurts me to say that. It pains me to say that. I think we can be a very good defensive team. When we lost John Newman, that took a lot out of who we were defensively and kind of the heart and soul of not just the plays that he makes, but the mentality he plays with every day. You're talking about 24 to 26 minutes, a game that we were projecting, and he brings a approach and mentality defensively that impacts everybody else's defense, not just his. And now we're trying to, adjust to not having that, our best defensive player, and figure out how we can have that, edge defensively that I want us to have, and we're going to have to do some things to create that. I'm not going to share that because I don't want to tip our cap to any changes that we're making for our opponents, but that's where I'm the most concerned. A couple other things. I mean, we have a chance to be a really good offensive rebounding team. It's like I talked about with other things offensively. It's got to be consistent, and we're going to really have to become a better defensive rebounding team. Yeah, again, there's stretches where you go, man, this team can rebound, and then there's the Ohio State game where you go, man, if we can't win the game because we can't get a defensive rebound, and so there's things like that. But overall, we've learned a lot. We've had to adjust our team a lot because the first week of the season we lost one of our most impactful players, and one of the players that we built some structure around all through the summer and the preseason. And now it's a good opportunity to get out and not just work at those things, but also prepared for some good teams that are coming in Fifth Third.
You're halfway through the non-conference season. You had half of the roster turnover. Do you feel like this team is starting to figure out its identity? And what is your goal in terms of what the ideal identity for this team going forward?
I think we're in that process. I don't like saying that. Like, I wish it was just full steam ahead. But everybody, I think, hopefully you guys know I'll be genuine and honest when I'm up here. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. We're still trying to figure that out. I think what it needs to be is a defensive approach for 40 minutes, a commitment by all four guys on the floor to defend, to rebound the basketball. I think it has to come first. We can't just sit back and play straight man-to-man for 40 minutes because, we talked about it from day one with it, we don't have that rim presence, in Abdul Adu or Hayden Koval back there to anchor our defense, and then we lost that big time, one of the best wing defenders in all of college basketball, in John Newman. But that can't change our mentality, and it's got to be a mentality for 40 minutes with five guys on the floor, and if we have to create some structural things different to give our guys some advantage, we have to do it. We have to rotate better. We have to put our body on the ball better. I mean, the most proud I was the entire tournament was Jeremiah Davenport taking 3 charges against Louisville. We have to be a team that takes charges, that flies around, that covers each other's back. And then we have to be a team that rebounds collectively. That's number one, what I see an identity of this team being as it becomes successful. Offensively, if you let us get out and run and we commit to it, we can score. I mean, we can put up numbers in bunches, but you need to get stops to fuel a running game. And then I think we have to figure out how to execute better in the half court to make sure that we're taking the right shots and getting guys in the right position and then destroy the offensive board. And I do think that's got to be our identity. I don't think that we're like miles and miles away from that, but we got to try to get there here with the last couple games or the second half of non-con as we go into American Conference play.
You mentioned preseason. You were working on zone. We haven't really seen it. Is it just not looked how you've wanted it to look yet, or you're not going to tell me?
Yeah, probably just won't tell you, but no, we have a zone. It's always at our disposal, game to game. And again, I think we've kind of not just after we got back from Maui, but since we've started playing, we've been talking about things that we can do differently, whether it's zone or different principles in the half court or schemes. But you need some practice time before you can implement that kind of stuff in a big way. And we've only had 1 or 2 practices between any game we played, and 2 of our games no practices. So
that second half against Louisville felt like such a huge 20 minutes to us, or me. What did you see from your group in their ability to respond and close out that tournament the right way?
Yeah, it's hard to put in perspective 3 games in 3 days. It just happens very rarely in college basketball. The Arizona game, which I thought we played pretty good basketball in stretches. I thought we played spirited basketball. Like we played with some of the mentality that we've been talking about up here. I wasn't disappointed in the way that we played against Arizona. I was disappointed in the result, and I was disappointed in our transition D, especially after some significant plays on the other end. But I wasn't disappointed in our approach and mentality. But then you come back, and it felt like 6 hours later. I know it was maybe like 18 hours later or whatever it was, but we played at 6:30 at night. I think the next game was at noon or 1 or something like that. You come back and you play a game the next day with feels like half a day. That takes a lot out of a team, and then to not have success, which by the way Ohio State had to do it too. I'm not making an excuse, but to not have success, and now you've been there for 48 hours and you haven't had any success, even though you had some good moments against a top 5 team in the country, it wears on you mentally, physically, as a team. And so that second half against Louisville was good to see good things happen, to see guys fight to try to win a game, and then to see them get some positive results while they were doing it. I never say any minute's the most important minute or anything, but yeah, that was important for our group.
David seemed to struggle offensively versus Ohio State. I think he finished with just 1 point, and then he quickly turned around and finished with 26 at Louisville. What was your message to him, and how did you keep him going with a quick turnaround, and how did he respond?
Well, there weren't a lot of time for conversations. It was like prep. But David's had an unbelievable offseason. He's put the work in on his game and his body, and he's a really confident offensive player. You know when he has a night that shots don't go, or he doesn't have the kind of success that he expects from himself or we expect from him. He's going to respond, and it was good to see the ball go in for him against Louisville. He made some really tough ones, but you put David in space and you let him go. Sometimes that is the most successful thing for him offensively, and we got to figure out the right way to do that, where it also fits within the flow of what we're doing and some of the stuff we've been talking about as a staff.
Coach Vic averaging career highs across the board, but 6th in average minutes on the team. Is that kind of the sweet spot you guys have found for him as a staff to keep him as healthy and kind of agile throughout the game as possible?
I mean, I'd like him to play all 40. When he's not in the game, we're not the same team. But as you said, for Vic to be successful, you got to find how many minutes can he play and still be moving well, healthy, playing to the standard that we know he can play to, and you don't want to overdo that. And then we had some good minutes out of Odie at times. We got to find some help in the front court for him. I think our team feels that. I think there's some guys that are very capable of that. But we don't want his minutes to get too extended because, like you said, he's going to be more productive kind of when he's in the right range. But as many minutes as he can possibly play without getting in foul trouble or without maybe overtraining or overplaying, that's probably the right spot. And he's getting better and better as we go.
We need 2 more questions.
We've seen what Landers can do. It feels like we haven't totally seen what Rob and Kalu can do. What needs to happen for them to play the way you need and want them to play?
Rob's had some really good moments defensively already. They haven't necessarily been in some of our best moments for our team. Like I thought at Northern Kentucky in the second half, he was phenomenal defensively, for example, and that wasn't a great half for our team. But it could have been a lot worse without his play, and he had some really good moments down in Maui defensively. So we knew that about him. I think, trying to make him feel more comfortable when he's at the point guard position, to try to make him feel or help him understand when his moments when he can attack and when his moments where he can kind of move the ball. And I think as it goes on, Rob's going to be better and better. We need a lot more out of Kalu. Like we just said, we need help in the front court. The talent's there. He's a good kid. He's got a good work ethic. We got to get him up to speed, or we got to get somebody up to speed because we need production there for sure. And I think he wants it just as bad as we want it for him.
Has there been a message to any of the kind of premier lead scorers, guys like Landers Nolly, David DeJulius, of trying to get some easier looks at the free throw line, trying to get more aggressive towards the basket throughout these first 7 games?
Yeah, we got to put more pressure on the rim. It's not necessarily like a message to 1 or 2 guys. It's just we have to get the ball inside more. I mean, people have caught on. We're trying to get the ball into Landers in the post because he's really good there, and he's a difficult matchup when you can take him out in the perimeter, run him off screens. put him in actions out in the perimeter, and then you can also dive him down and post him, and that's a way to put pressure on the defense. We want him to get fouled a little more, but it's not an overthinking thing. I think he just needs more touches down there. We got to get the ball inside the Victor more. We got to put more pressure on the rim off the dribble. I think we have some guys that can, direct line drive. So I think it's a handful of things, but we're certainly looking at the same numbers that you're looking at when you ask that question. We got to get fouled more.
Thanks, Coach.
You want one more?
One more.
Come on, let's go.
Chisel James and Rayvon Griffith officially signed as Bearcats. Can you just give us some thoughts on what you're getting in those two guys and why you're excited to bring them into the program? I couldn't let you go without it.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, thrilled. I mean, they're good. They're really good players, right? And again, then when you're coaching, you're so in the moment, and there's this sense of urgency for right now, today, and that's not going to change. I think this team can be really good, but you also take steps back in your job in recruiting. This is why being a head coach in college basketball is such an interesting job, because you're so consumed in every moment, but your job is to take a step back and look at the future at times too. That's hard for me, but when you do that right now, it's really exciting, because you look, Jizzle James is as good as any point guard as there is in his class, and he fits who we are and what we're about. I mean, he's tough, he's physical, he gets where he wants with the ball, he can score it in bunches if you ask him to do it, he can run a team. I think he's what people think of when they think of a Bearcat point guard, but he's a high level one now. Again, I think he might be as good as any point guard in this class when you go head to head, and he showed that in the Nike EYBL. And then Rayvon Griffith, man, 6'7". Like we talked about John Newman and what we're missing with him. Rayvon Griffith has that type of mentality and approach, and at this stage, like as a high school senior, is a lot further along than John was at that stage as an offensive player. I'm not going to compare a fifth-year senior to a senior in high school, but man, he's got that mentality. He's 6'7", he can guard every position on the court, and he's a really gifted rebounder and offensive player, and he's from Cincinnati. So you're recruiting on the national level with both of those guys. I mean, two of the top 50, 60 players in America in any scouting service, and I happen to think they're both better. I happen to think they both fit our values. And then Rayvon, you recruit nationally, but you also recruit locally, and I think it's pretty special when you can do that.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.